Okay, now after last week's game against Northwestern, about this Ohio State team, everybody was talking about how Ohio State was not as physical as we first thought. Ohio State cannot play tough. Ohio State is not a team that is able to play through the elements, right? And Ohio State proved all of those things wrong in this game against Indiana. We were dominant, we were tough, we were physical, and we played well even when there was snow falling from the sky here in today's game. Ohio State did a little bit of everything today. They cleaned up a lot of stuff on the offensive end, cleaned up a lot of stuff defensively, and yet I still think this team can play better than what they showed today. And again, there are some injuries that, again, you have to take into account and everything like that. And yes, looking at the opponent on the other side of the ball, in an Indiana team that has struggled a lot this year and hasn't really been up to standards and up to par. But on the other side of the ball is an Ohio State team that, after getting not necessarily a lot of hate, but a lot of doubters over the past couple of weeks, they really came out and proved themselves in this game, saying, hey, that number 2 by our name is not a mistake. The playoff committee did that for a reason. They kept him in number 2 for a reason, and Ohio State showed that today. What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome to my channel. If you're new to the channel, I am an Ohio State fan. I do one of these videos after every single Ohio State game. It's called my Ohio State Fan Reaction, OSFR. This is the 2022 season, game number 10, back to dominance. The Buckeyes roll over the Hoosiers, showing toughness and physicality along the way. And we're going to get to how they did that in a little bit. But, of course, if you are an Ohio State fan, I do one of these after every single video. So if you want to see these types of videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But hey, I do other college football videos as well, top 25s, playoff predictions. I did a preview look on what the month of November could look like. I do some fun stuff here on the channel. We talk college football. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, turn notifications on. Really anything you can to help support the channel. Even by watching this video, you're helping to support my channel. So I do appreciate it a whole lot. And let's dive in to reviewing what we saw on the field this game. Full disclosure, I was actually calling a football game for my college. We're going to the Division II playoffs. We clinched it with a win today. But looking at this game, I went back. I caught a little bit of the game while I was calling the game at halftime. Ended up going back, rewatching the entire game. Watched a lot of highlight tape and film there as well. And I'm ready to sit down and talk about this game. So, what did we see? First, let's talk about the quarterback, C.J. Stroud. A lot of people starting to question him and maybe push him back in the Heisman race and do stuff like that. Now, I know the Heisman race is taking a back seat to everything that is precedent right now, but I think C.J. Stroud should be back as the Heisman frontrunner after this performance. 17 of 18. He did have some throws that were a little high. In fact, there was one throw where he overthrew a wide open receiver. But I thought all in all, C.J. Stroud had some really good throws. He took a lot of deep shots in this game. And I thought he played pretty darn well. 297 yards and 5 touchdowns there for Stroud. A total QBR of 86.4. Really good stuff I saw out of C.J. Stroud today. I thought he played exceptionally well. Looking at the rushing attack, this was the biggest question for Ohio State coming into today, because over the past 3 weeks against the Iowa Hawkeyes, the Penn State Nittany Lions, and the Northwestern Wildcats, we just really weren't able to get the run game going as effectively as we have been throughout most of the season, or I guess throughout the first half of our schedule that you see there down below me. But we did that exceptionally well today. Mayan Williams went down with an injury. Talk more about that later in the second quarter. But before he did that, he was absolutely dynamic, and he flipped a switch quicker than anyone I've seen flip a switch for this Ohio State team this year. 15 carries, 147 yards, 1 touchdown, an average of 9.8 yards per carry. Mayan Williams was doing everything for this Ohio State team in the first half. Sorry, I have to take some water breaks. My throat's still a little caught up. Stay hydrated, everybody out there. But back to Mayan Williams. That injury looked scary at first. His leg ended up getting rolled up on. He did end up getting off the field, sort of under his own power. Kind of got helped off by some trainers there as well, and ended up getting carted off the field. Not a scene that a lot of people wanted to see. But Ryan Day did come out and say that they expect Mayan Williams' injury to not be too severe, and they also expect Travion Henderson, who did not play in this game today, to be back for next week. And I'll mention that again probably closer to the end of the video. But Mayan Williams went down with an injury late in the first half. I think it looked scarier than it probably actually is by the sound of it. So good to see that Mayan Williams probably going to end up being okay in the long run. Now, taking a look at some other running back production there. Dallin Hayden, the true freshman. He's been really good for the Buckeyes when he's played this year. He was good for us today. 19 carries, 102 yards, and a touchdown for 5.4 yards per carry. Other rushing attempts, Xavier Johnson had a very nice run. It was a 71-yard touchdown run on a little end-around play, and he just knifed his way through that Indiana defense. I think made 4 or 5 cutback moves on that run and able to get into the end zone. The X factor, the X-Men, I think is what the Ohio State teammates call him. He was really good today, especially on that run there as well, especially when Mayan Williams went down. If Mayan Williams' injury proves to be maybe worse than first expected and Travion Henderson still is not ready to go next week, we're going to see a lot of Dallin Hayden and maybe some Xavier Johnson in the backfield there as well, although Chip Trayanum, the transfer over from Arizona State, originally transferred in as a running back, and they slotted him at linebacker. And, of course, we have Steele Chambers there that has played running back for this team before. So I'm not super worried about the running back depth, but hopefully Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson can get back to playing running back for us this next week. We hope that Mayan Williams is going to be able to be okay. And, again, it sounds like Travion Henderson will be back next week. Marvin Harrison had a run of 18 yards there as well. Overall, 43 carries, 43 carries, 340 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 7.9 yards per carry. Physicality and toughness, that happens through the run game. Yeah, Ohio State showed that in this game. Moving on over to the receiving end, it was Marvin Harrison all day long. 7 catches, 135 yards, and 19.3 yards per carry, yards per reception, my apologies. Did have a touchdown there as well. Cade Stover, 3 catches, 45 yards, couple touchdowns for him. Emeka Egbuka, even though only had 2 catches for 38 yards, did have a 32-yard touchdown catch there as well. Jaden Ballard had a catch. Julian Fleming, a couple catches. The X-Men, Xavier Johnson, 2 catches for 47 yards. And how about this story? Cameron Babb. He's been with this program for so long, was such a highly recruited player, and just couldn't get himself on the field. Could not get above the talent that Ohio State brings in year after year. But Cameron Babb catches his first career touchdown pass today. And, just what a story for Cameron Babb. Could not be happier for that man. He deserves it. He wears the coveted number 0, the block O. They don't give that to just anybody at Ohio State University. They give that to someone who they really trust, and they give that to someone who can lead this team. Cameron Babb has been with this program for so long. Really, really good to see that. And I know it was late in the game, and people are going to say the touchdown doesn't matter and so on and so forth. It matters. And what a pitch and catch from C.J. Stroud to Cameron Babb. It was a pretty good catch, if I do say so myself. I think Cameron Babb would be saying the same thing. What a story for him to get his first career touchdown reception. He was really good when he was on the field for this Ohio State team. Looking at Ohio State defensively, Steele Chambers led the way with 10 tackles. Lathan, you know what? Let me isolate Lathan Ransom for a second, because every single defensive possession when I went back and rewatched the game, I just kept thinking like, oh, there's Lathan Ransom. Oh, there's Lathan Ransom. Oh, okay, number 12 made the, all right. He was everywhere for this Ohio State team today. 9 tackles, 7 by himself, a sack and a half, a pass defended, and a blocked punt for Lathan Ransom there as well. He had a phenomenal day in an Ohio State uniform. Probably the best player on our defense today. He was amazing. Tommy Eichenberg played really well. Jack Sawyer had a couple really nice hits. He had a sack and a half there as well. All in all, Ohio State, 69 tackles, 4 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 6 passes defended, and 3 quarterback hurries. Those coming from Tommy Eichenberg, Teron Vincent, and Cody Simon. So really, really good stuff from this Ohio State defense. Defensively, we only held Indiana to 3.8 yards per carry. 40 carries for the Hoosiers on 150 yards did not allow Indiana to get into the end zone at all through the ground game. Of course, and actually Dexter Williams, their quarterback, was their leading rusher here in this game. He only went 6 of 19, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. Ohio State did a good job of defending passes today, although Dexter Williams, again, not the quarterback you really want to have in there. You would prefer to have Connor Bazelak, and I'm not really sure what happened, but they ended up going with Dexter Williams for most of this game. He was that leading rusher, though. 16 carries for 46 yards, but only 2.9 yards per carry. In fact, Ohio State limited pretty much everyone really well. Josh Henderson, only 7 carries for 25 yards, 3.6 yards per carry. Sean Shivers, the Auburn transfer, only 2.5 yards per carry. Jalen Lucas, 2.8 yards per carry. And we dropped Connor Bazelak behind the line a couple times. He had negative 1 yard per carry. Overall, though, that 3.8 yards per carry, that number should be a lot lower if it weren't for Emory Simon's 44-yard run. I believe it was on a screen pass. Again, I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but he did have a 44-yard run in there, which kind of elevated the Hoosiers' running numbers. But without that carry, 39. I wish I had a calculator with me to do some quick math. But 39 without that 44-yard run. 39 carries for 106 yards. That maybe is not even 3 yards per carry. So besides that big play, Ohio State did a really nice job. There were some big plays through the air as well. Anderson Kobe had a 49-yard catch. And Malachi Holt-Bennett had a 28-yard catch. And then Donovan McCulley, a quarterback moving over to play wide receiver, had a 19-yard touchdown catch there as well. So all in all, a good job at limiting those big plays. But again, with the style of defense that Jim Knowles plays, and he's talked about this before, especially earlier on in the year, you're going to allow those big plays. It's just the style of defense that Jim Knowles plays with. And, of course, I don't think Ohio State fans were too worried about it hurting them too much in this game, especially once that offense got rolling. Indiana, defensively, I thought had some really good moments. They played and came out strong early against this Ohio State offense, but not a single time did they get back to C.J. Stroud. Only 4 tackles for loss, 5 passes defended, so they did a pretty good job there. In fact, 3 of them coming from their best defensive player in Tywan Mullen. He had 4 tackles, 2 of them by himself there as well. So all in all, not necessarily a great performance from Indiana, but when you go up against a team like Ohio State, the box score not necessarily going to look so good. All in all, when you look at team stats for these two teams, 27-11 were the first down numbers. Let me see here. 7 of 14 on third down were the Buckeyes, while only holding the Hoosiers to 3 of 17 on third down for the Buckeyes as well. My apologies, I gotta fix my window here for a second. 662 total yards, only holding Indiana to 269. 322 yards through the air to Indiana's 119. 340 yards on the ground to Indiana's 150. And it was a pretty clean game overall. Only 5 flags on the field throughout the entire game. Ohio State did end up losing a fumble in this game. It was a muffed punt that happened sort of late in the game. Was kind of again, not a mistake that you want to have made. Let me back up. Ohio State has had some problems with muffed punts this year. It wasn't Emeka Egbuka back there. I can't remember who was back there and muffed the punt. I will probably end up finding it here in a little bit. But look, here it is. Reese Stocksdale ended up muffing that punt. Indiana would score on their next drive. Ohio State would come back and retaliate. And that was close to the end of the game. That was in the fourth quarter anyway, when the game was solely out of reach. Now, I do want to talk about playing through weather, because there were times where it was snowing on the field and there were flurries coming down, and Ohio State still played well and battled through the elements. In fact, C.J. Stroud threw a nice 58-yard pass to Marvin Harrison Jr. while it was snowing, mind you. So all the talk about Ohio State can't play in the elements if Michigan and Ohio State on November 26th is a cold, wet, snowy day. Michigan has the upper hand. Michigan struggled to play in the elements today, especially passing through the air. Now, they ended up dominating the Nebraska Cornhuskers, but Ohio State was still a big play threat while it was snowing outside. So, look, what affected Ohio State a lot last week were the hail force winds, right? If it is a windy day, it's going to be really hard for Ohio State to operate the style of offense that they play, not so much the Michigan Wolverines. Now, there's a lot of talk about that game, and I'm not one for looking ahead, but Maryland got dominated by Penn State this week. So I'm starting to feel a little bit better about that Maryland game. I still think Maryland has the ability, especially offensively, to give Ohio State maybe a little bit of a scare. But with the way that Ohio State played today, if they can go on the road in Maryland and play like they did today, Ohio State should have no problem there. And then again, all eyes going to be on that Michigan game on November 26th. So all in all, looking at this performance, I thought we showed physicality, we showed our toughness, and I thought this was a really, really well-played game from the Buckeyes. Don't really have much else to say about this one. I mean, looking ahead on the schedule, of course, you got Maryland on the road. Again, I think that Maryland can give Ohio State a little bit of a challenge, and this is the defense in Maryland that has shown more of a ceiling than it has in years past, although still nowhere close to be able to slow down the Ohio State offensive attack that we saw today. But Ohio State got back to dominance. They got down to business. They looked at what everyone was saying around the nation, and they said, hey, that number 2 buyer name is not a mistake. Looking ahead to next game, though, we still did not have Jackson Smith and Jigba play. Hopefully he's healthy and ready to go by next week. If not, hopefully he is healthy and ready to go by that Michigan game. From the sounds of it, I don't quite know that Mayan Williams, and I don't even think Ohio State quite knows that Mayan Williams is going to be ready to play next week. But from the sounds of it, Travion Henderson will be ready to play next week. That has been the talk around Ohio State football right now. So other than that, I can't really think of much else to say here. Again, I didn't watch the game in full, so maybe I would have more thoughts if I were to watch the game live. But again, I went back, rewatched a lot of tape, a lot of film, so I could sit down here and talk about this game accurately for you guys. Ohio State improves to 10-0 on the year. We have remained perfect, and all of our wins coming by the double-digit factor. So can't really complain much if you are an Ohio State fan right now. Sitting at number 2 in the nation, should stay that way in the college football playoff rankings there as well. The way that Michigan struggled through the elements today, don't see Michigan leapfrogging Ohio State. But again, all eyes are still pointed to that November 26th matchup in Columbus against that team from up north. But Ohio State still got one more game before that. Can't get caught looking ahead against this Maryland team. I know they have not looked great over these past couple of weeks. They did have to play in the elements against Wisconsin, and then this week they just came up against a really good Penn State team that bulldozed them. So you can't overlook this Maryland team. It's a Maryland team that can give you a scare, especially if they're able to click offensively. But the way that Ohio State played today, I expect that line to be pretty sizable for the Ohio State Buckeyes. That's kind of all I got to say about this one here. The Buckeyes, again, return to dominance, roll over the Hoosiers, showing their toughness and physicality, and proving why this is a national championship contender. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Do anything you can to help support the channel. And remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Go Bucks, and have a good rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.